Alright nerds, guess what? I can't do these weapon rankings the way I used to for Demon Souls, but that's okay because I had a thought. This came to me in my Hyperion Allegiance video for the pre-sequel, which you should watch. I'm proud of that one, kind of. Anywho, I realized that the first playthrough is just too easy to get a good comparison between weapons. Also, since I'm on Linux, I can't use the save editor I used to use. I tried all sorts of stuff, nothing worked, so I'll just have to acquire the weapons in-game legitimately. Yucky. So, I'm starting over from the beginning, with the basic Dagger, which is the starting weapon for two classes. I chose the one with the higher starting dex, the Wanderer, who also has a lower starting soul level than the Thief. The other class with a dagger is a starting weapon, so that's nice. Nice because of my rules surrounding level ups and item usage, which I'll get into at some point, maybe. The last thing that made the Wanderer the ideal choice for this is we start with 2 grindstones, which I needed actually. You'll have to forgive any inconsistencies in the audio, or especially video of the gameplay. I had some trouble emulating and needed to tweak lots of stuff. Now, I am already moderately familiar with the Dagger, and I do remember liking it quite a bit. I graded it as C at the time, but that is absolutely going to change. It's just so fast, and hitting first is so much more important in this game than hitting hardest, usually. Damage can certainly be a bit lacking at the start when you one-handed, but that's fine. We fix that very soon. To make a relatively long story short with Vanguard here, everything was fine until I died to jank. See what I mean about some stuff I had to troubleshoot? Anyway, we're at a level proper now, and it's a good time. Like I said, Dagger is quick, which is exquisite, and it's not large, so it rarely, if ever, bounces off walls. There's a few things you should be careful around when using this dagger, namely, anyone and anything with a shield or uninterruptible attacks. Luckily, most shielded soldiers like these here aren't great at actually using the shields. But I am getting hit because I'm not picking my attacks carefully. I'm a button masher, what can I say? I should stress the fact that against some enemies the damage is really quite not good, but I also should stress the fact that we're gonna fix that very soon. Luckily, the toughest enemies in this level are mad easy to backstab, so they aren't a problem. So anyway, I should explain the rules. No damage boosting rings or spells or armor of any kind. Only thing gonna boost my damage is weapon upgrades and level ups. That's it. This rule will continue into New Game Plus, which is where this run will end. Fresh Game is too easy to get a proper comparison between weapons. Everything feels so samey, with some exceptions. Also, no infusions or anything like that. I can't add damage types with rocks, just boost scaling. I don't want you to think I never died during 1-1. I certainly did. But there's only one death that was caused by a weakness of the Dagger. Remember what I said about shielded enemies? They can be quite tricky, especially in situations like this where the area is pretty cramped and I can't sneak behind him to get a backshot in. Dagger just can't break that poise. So they backed me into a corner and killed me. I needed that 4K I dropped though. And I hadn't unlocked the shortcut, so I reran the entire map to get back. Just to die again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Third try was the charm and I was able to get those souls back, so that's nice. The trick was to not be dumb. That's everything interesting in 1-1 besides the boss. Hey, remember when I said remember what I said about shielded enemies? Well, it might be surprising to know that Phalanx is a shielded enemy. One-hitting the dagger makes it bounce, so I didn't even try that. And we can just barely do enough damage to be able to actually kill some slimes before they heal back up. But having to go out and in and out and in for so long is just unsafe in this fight where it's hard to see when you're about to be attacked, and attacks are hard to dodge, which ultimately caused my demise. Round 2 went much better, but it was still just a series of hit and runs until enough slimes were dead and I could actually kill the boss. And as you can see, my weapon broke during that, because this fight was 2 minutes 45 seconds, plus the previous attempt, plus all the dying I did a minute ago. Those grindstones would have been very useful if I remembered I had them. And that was 1-1. Now the dagger is a dex weapon, which means I want to use bladestone to upgrade it, which is pretty annoying. Luckily we get our bladestone shard on the first kill of the first skeleton. That's good. So I dupe that. I'll dupe anything as long as it speeds up or avoids a farm, I tell you what. That's real, that's one of my rules. I can dupe whatever I want as long as it speeds up or avoids a farm. Dagger has a few pierce attacks, which makes it not the worst thing to use in 2-1. These dogs were the most dangerous thing here, everything else was mostly tedious. Okay, statistically speaking, that elevator was the most dangerous thing in 2-1. But we got our upgrade. And now we need a chunk, which we get from a black skeleton, past all these silver skeletons. This is the annoying part. The dagger being as fast as it is makes this less annoying than it could be, though. And the black skeleton itself is mad easy to backstab cheese. So after about 2 hours we get one of those, dupe it and use it. Then we kill Adjudicator to get to the pure bladestone farm. This was really easy. You don't need to see me waltz my way through 4-1. It wasn't that interesting, everything died pretty good. Adjudicator also died pretty good. Wasn't a 1-cycle. Wouldn't want that jump cut to confuse ya. And we're on to not only the pure bladestone farm, but also one of the best soul farms in this game. World 4 is highly lucrative. And again, really easy to backstab cheese. The weapon really doesn't have anything to do with these guys being easy or hard. So, after, I kid you not, like 8 or 9 hours of farming over 3 days, we finally got our pure bladestone. And I reached our level cap for this new game cycle. You don't need to worry about why we have a level cap, it's for my own convenience in later runs. But I got my pure stone. Hooray. So now we can talk about that whole "this game is too easy" business. You see, at no point after the dogs in 2-1 was I threatened by anything, and at no point beyond getting my max level swagger was I unable to demolish anything in front of me. I only died to my own carelessness, and it wasn't until I started grading more weapons that I realized how little difference I could feel between them in New Game. The only possible solution? Use New Game to acquire the weapon and discuss availability, not super necessary for all the starting weapons, but then use New Game Plus for the grading. I mean look, this is Alan, he's the hardest tankiest boss in the game and I was basically falling asleep fighting him. This will be my first time in New Game Plus in any Souls-like, and this is the most unforgiving difficulty jump for New Game Plus, so I'm preparing a little. Basically all I did was dupe colorless souls to get the regen shield to level 5, which does increase the regen effect, and I have regen ring too. That's all the prep. So let's get to the actual grading. Most of the mobs were more or less pretty similar. Damage isn't what makes the dagger really good, it's the speed. As long as that speed has a little damage behind it, you're in business. And the dagger has really decent damage behind it, considering the speed. That stamina cost being nice and low is great too. Really good sustain when you have your damage in order. Which takes us to failings. Good damage, good sustain, dead slimies. It's fast enough to be able to sneak in a hit just before I get hit. Slower weapons would have me 100% stun locked there. And the damage against the actual boss is very, very good. This is much more useful information than unupgraded low-level type dagger. And the whole fight was 1:15 seconds, 1.5 minutes faster than before. You might be thinking, oh well, you leveled up a bunch and now the game is too easy, but no, that's not the case, fortunately. Not the case at all. So, Tower Knight, less damage than before, significantly, and the archers do more damage than before, significantly. So much more damage the archers deal that for safety I took them all out. Verbal spaghetti. Now one stamina bar is more than enough to break one of his ankles. That's very good. I'm not sure how they work though, if it's like hit based or health based or what. But if it's hit based, the dagger has an advantage either way because it's so speedy fastly. I didn't notice until now, but old TK is weak to pierce. Very weak actually. So it might have been nice to do the heavy stabs on him rather than these wimpy slashes. I'm not sure the higher damage would make up for the slower attack speed though. And we were able to 2-cycle him, so it's fine. No, I didn't get stuck in a corner while he kept jumping backwards into said corner causing me to die. That's ridiculous. Backstabs are a one-shot kill and pokes do a decent amount of damage still, so this should be fine. Damage against SCP-3288 was pretty good, but not nearly as good as its damage against me. Yowza. Which brings me to my next point. In New Game I can just tank through any mistakes I make. Not here. The weapon needs to make up for my mistakes, not my health bar. Mostly. I died once or twice to these dogs and nothing else. They were very dangerous. Armor Spider was fun. Since the dagger is so fast, I was able to get lots of hits in between its attacks. I wasn't sure how much damage it would do to me, so I played it pretty careful. But still, having a fast weapon is very nice here, because you want to be able to dodge at a moment's notice. I ended up taking a hit and realized I could have been much more brazen. Oh well. Flame Lurker was a whole different story. This fight was an absolute slog. And he certainly does do damage to me, so I'm glad I had plenty of grass. Not only is the damage not super great, but this is, I think, one of the only fights where the actual range and hitbox was playing against me. I wanted to attack him from behind for safety, and his leg were kind of perfectly shaped to dodge the dagger's hitbox. And when I do hit, like I said, the damage isn't the best. Attacking from behind probably isn't the best move as it makes his jump hitbox at you more often, since you will hop to his side or rear and the forward lunge is much lower and better telegraphed. Anyway, this fight lasted around 5 minutes. Oh, and also the dagger is really bad for Dragon God because of how slow it is to break the debris and detritus scattered around. This was a 10-minute long stealth mission, which I enjoyed. I really liked Dragon God, and I liked having to actually be stealthy. Latvia is my favorite planet in Dark Souls, but I don't really have a lot to say about the mobbing here. Well, I can mention how much damage these guys deal with their sucky. That's a lot. So, I mean, watch out for that, I guess. Is this a guide video? Am I guiding you? Goodness, I really hope you aren't looking to me for guidance. But these guys aren't actually that bad to take down. You just can't hesitate. I showed the entirety of this fight in New Game just so we could have a nice comparison. DPS is still pretty good, I think. I do know that you get more damage per stamina bar with two-handing, which is good when you can fully stunlock whatever you're hitting. You know, I think you've seen enough. You don't need to see the rest of this fight, actually. We're gonna move on. I did learn, though, with this tricky fella, you can hang back and wait until it turns around to go back off of the stairs, making it super easy to deal with. You get your angles right, and a few swings will knock it off the stairs entirely. Very nice. Now, this might be a hot take, but the Man-Eaters are my favorite boss. This run, anyway, but we have a damage problem. Man-Eater 2 spawned when Man-Eater 1 was barely at half health, and one Man-Eater is already kinda janky. And look at this, they can buff each other themselves or something. I've never seen that in my entire life. It was kind of tricky getting openings to attack with both of them in play, but not impossible, especially with how fast the dagger is, so I was able to kill the first one. And apparently, when they're buffed, they do way more damage. The things you miss out on when you kill every boss in like 30 seconds. Also, I'm not sure if killing his buddy made him mad or if it's the buff that does that, but he got super aggressive. The second death was caused by a double fist slam magic blast combo with my lowered soul health. And the third time I got pushed off the edge. This was the boss I died most to. 3 deaths, and this attempt was successful due to cooperation on their part. M1 floated within feet tickling range, so I was able to sustain very decent damage on it. And get its health pretty low before M2 joined. And when they were both spawned, they kind of took turns being landed or airborne. Both of them were rarely attacking me at once, which let me focus on one at a time. Very polite of them. The successful attempt was 5-ish minutes and pretty fun, but in the future I'll be on the lookout for weapons that can fully kill M1 before M2 spawns. Now, the damage on these final flares wasn't very great, but since it's so cramped in here, the dagger being small is nice and convenient. I will never in any of these grading videos discuss PvP, but NPC enemies are a totally different story, and the dagger is pretty good against them. This guy especially is super easy to get backstabs on, but again, I'm like a broken record. The dagger is just so fast, it can interrupt a lot of his attacks. Very easy, very fun, not super interesting, let's move on. Yes, these spinsters again. Luckily I figured out the timing to interrupt the rolling. I was able to get through this whole group without taking a single hit. That's all the 4-1 you need to see, I guess. No, that's all you need to see, I said. Adjudicator was fun, took 8 hits to knock him over. This fight was probably the most similar to New Game. 2-cycled him, just like before. Here's a fun fact, if you stand over here on this edge, they do that. Old Hero was very, very fun. I love this boss too. No thief ring, not in soul form, we raw dog this guy. And the dagger is pretty good on him. He doesn't get stun locked the same way other enemies and a few bosses can, but we can get in a pretty good burst before he reacts. The damage could definitely be better, but that's fine. I did have a close call or two, but that was my bad. And then I used the Storm Ruler for the Storm King, because of course I did, I'm not a fool. Now this might be a hot take, but Valley of Defilement in New Game Plus was my favorite part of this entire run. In all my previous runs, this was the last thing I did before 1-3 and Endgame, so it was always an absolute steamroll, but the enemies actually being dangerous here makes it so tense in such a good way. Do note we have pure white world tendency, so I'm doing more damage right now in soul form. These guys took 3 hits to take out in body form, which is why I died in the first place. I also have a much better appreciation for why that move gets so much hate. It needs to do like a third of the damage it does, since it already pushes you in this precarious map. And again, I gotta keep mentioning it because of how good it is. Dagger Fast is very good in many, many situations. This was the level I died in most for sure. I forget how many times I died, I think it was like 4 or 5, and these guys were scary to deal with, but not bad. Each mongrel was pretty boring. I don't know if this guy's ever gonna be interesting to fight if I'm honest. All I had to do was back up and do the plant when my health got a little low, which is different to New Game where I melted him in 1 stamina bar. 5-2 is much more dangerous. The enemies do lots more damage, but luckily I'm very good at dodging everything here, which I decided to do at this part right here. Also, thanks to the upgraded Judy shield, the poison doesn't really do much except make my grass heal for less.
It brims with grime, but at once feels strangely pure.
Pure grime. Anyway, like I said, I was able to run past all this nonsense, which I normally do anyway. It's less hassle than killing everything. Stinky was very fun. Once you figure out which side is his backside, sticking to that is pretty safe. The damage isn't too bad. I'd have liked it to be a smidge better, but I can't complain. The Yapaholic was pretty easy to take care of, too. Those big swingies leave his backside wide open for a poking. Only took a few of those to kill him. Hardest boss fight ever for a Souls gamer. Talking to a woman. 1-3 was basically normal and fun. I expected much less damage against these guys, and I'm glad the damage is as good as it is. I did run past a lot of stuff here though, if I'm honest. Most tense part of this was here where I was stuck between 2 shielded guys in a firing squad. Which could have ended poorly for me for sure, but it ended poorly for them instead. I ran right past these fellas though, I tell you what. Look at that damage, I ain't dealing with that. Penetrator was pretty normal and boring. I was surprised that Dagger would do so much damage to a heavily armored guy like him though. It's more than I expected, but still nothing crazy. You can stun lock him a little bit, but he gets free pretty quickly, so I had to watch my R1 spam. This is why I have to watch my R1 spam. Pretty fun boss. I think I'll kill him a second time. Penetrator and Phalanx Ghost are the easy parts. It's the TK Ghost that's the hard one. And yeah, that's quite a lot of damage he does with that little poker. However, a skilled combatant like me was able to easily and swiftly circle around him to deliver a lethal blow. Owie. 2 backstabs and a swingy to finish off TK, and then Phalanx is easy, like I said. The rest of this level is really just running past this dragon. Oh, hello. I would definitely recommend you not to dilly-dally even after you cross this bridge, because if you do, it changes position early, and in New Game Plus, his breath is just an insta-kill when you don't have a crazy amount of fire resist. But if you're speedy, you can dodge all his fire on these stairs. I have no clue if there's another way past this guy, or if you're supposed to kill him. Never bothered to look into it. What was this guy's name? Oscar? Oscar was easy. Here we are, the last real fight of the game, and I got tripped up real bad right here. I don't know why I didn't dodge a single thing. I know I didn't even try to dodge here, I just stood there like a dum-dum. Almost as much of a dum-dum as you are if you haven't liked this video and subscribed to my channel. So this fight was interesting. Basically, it's kind of boring because it's well designed. There's not really any jank, but the jank is what makes a lot of these fights interesting. This feels like the groundwork for the dodge fest Souls-likes became later on, but you can sunlock them a little bit, which is good. The dagger is nice here because of that. At this point, it's not really the dagger that's good, it's how poise works in this game that makes the dagger good. But you can still get in hits with it where you might not be able to with other weapons, and its damage is pretty decent considering that speed, so it's still good, I think. But how good is it? I think considering all the stuff I said and all the things it did, I'd say like a solid B+. Pretty good, but I wish it did more damage for mobbing scenarios. Its performance in 1-1 in New Game is a big part of why it's not an A- or A. Phalanx was pretty annoying. The damage was really not very good to start off the run with, but if it wasn't a starting weapon, if I had to trudge all the way to like 2-2 for it, that would lower its grade for sure. So it's a B+. Nice, solid, dependable, not super high damage, but speed makes up for that in most scenarios. But low starting damage makes it harder to get off the ground with. Okay, bye bye. Like, comment, subscribe.